Expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome. It is PTL. Welcome, PTL family, and everyone listening, watching on the Occupy Democrats Network. Of course, my personal YouTube page, which is at PTL Radio Show, which is ever so growing. Yes, that's right. 200,000 plus listeners a day, and we appreciate you being a part of what we do here. And yeah, we have a very busy news day today. Yep, that's right. U.S. stock markets falling sharply today, while global financial markets experienced their worst trading day since the onset of COVID. And many leading economists are saying that they fear that the tariffs could lead to a global recession. The S&P 500 falling 4% today. Trump tariffs could cost average U.S. households up to $2,100 per year, and that's according to analysis from a nonpartisan tax foundation. So what is Donald Trump doing? While you could say the economic world is on fire, is he in the White House today? Is he trying to calm the country? Nah. Well, you see, after launching his economic chaos and uncertainty with his tariffs, Trump now heads to Florida. That's right. He's going to Miami for the rest of the entire week. Why? Because he's backing the Saudi-owned Live Golf tournament at his Doral Golf Club. I'm not making this up. He's going to the dinner tonight. He's there all week, playing golf, having fun, making money, while we suffer. That's what Donald Trump is doing. Golfing. Backing the Saudi government, the corrupt Saudi government. Just thought I would throw that out there. So, to join us to talk about this stuff, it's always a pleasure when he comes on. He is the host of the David Pollack Show, and David Pollack is nice enough to join us to talk about what is going on when it comes to the economy today. David, it is good to see you, my friend. How are you?
What's going on, my friends? Great to see you as well.
Again, I mentioned this to start the show, as I always do. I'm very jealous of your very professional studio that you have there in the background. I'm working on mine, David. Okay, I'm working on mine. But,
I want to tell you, it looks really nice. But you're pulling off the radio vibe. Like if I was going to watch a show of a guy who's in a radio station, I'd want it to look just like that. So I think it's perfect.
I don't know if you're being honest with me.
No, I'm being sincere. I'm being sincere.
I will take that as a compliment. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Back in my radio days, I did exactly what you did. I would stream from my studio, and the studio was like, I think it had magenta carpet on the walls, and like it was hideous. But you know what? People watched it. I had my dumpy studio headphones on, but I was in a radio studio, so people felt like they were seeing something they don't get to see. So I think your studio is much better than one I used to broadcast out of. So
well, I appreciate that. I'll take that as a comp. I'll take them as I get them, David. So much to talk about today. I appreciate you being here. Listen, let's start with this behavior. Then we'll get to policy.
All right.
You know about the Dow taking a dive and the economy stumbling today. That would be a nice way of putting it. And a lot of people are fearing a global recession. We'll get to that stuff. But with that being said, I'm reading the story of Donald Trump on the agenda today. He's spending, a lot of time at Doral to back the Live Golf Tour tournament at his golf course. Are you comfortable with that when what is going on today with the economy?
I mean, nothing's going on today with the economy. I mean, there's a lot of hysteria based on what people think might happen with the economy. I mean, yes, the stock market is dropped on fear of how these tariffs might affect U.S. companies. I look at it as a buying opportunity for people long term. As long as you don't cash out your 401k today, you'll probably be okay. So it's really not a crisis yet. Maybe it might be, maybe it won't be. But I think a lot of it is anticipatory hysteria. So for Trump to take a day and go do whatever he wants to do on his time, I don't think it's not like there was a hurricane striking a city right now.
No, I mean, if there was a hurricane striking, he'd take a lap around Daytona 500. Last time he did that, when four states were underwater, and he decided to go to Daytona 500 and cost the American taxpayer $10 million. So I'm with you. If there was a hurricane, you'd probably be playing golf.
Well, either way.
I'm just saying, David.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't
I'm
have a
just
problem with
saying.
playing golf today. I don't. I think a lot of this tariff hysteria. Look, and I'm not an economist, right? I'm a pundit. I have opinions, but a lot of this hysteria is based on two things. One, and look, it's coming from the right as well. It's not just Democrats that are saying these tariffs are a bad idea. Mike Pence was out there, and I mean, even though we don't give him a lot of credit these days, Rand Paul was out there again, and as a matter of fact, 4 Republicans voted to stop the Canadian tariffs. Even though nothing's going to happen with that. But at the end of the day, look, there are Republicans who are concerned about the tariffs as well. It's a bold move. But look, this is the time for bold moves. We have an economy that artificially has been propped up probably for a good 20 years now. And you talk about regular people and suffering. I think people have suffered for a long time. The regular people have suffered. If you're in manufacturing or if you're, in any of the areas where your factories might have been shut, your jobs exported. I mean, we don't manufacture chips in the United States anymore. Those are in South Korea. We don't manufacture a lot of our clothing. Those are in a lot of the East Asian countries. We don't manufacture our automobiles. That's in Canada.
We don't make Trump Bibles in the United States of America.
Yeah.
Trump Bibles are made in China. I will also add that manufacturing
Maybe those will come back too. Those will come back too, Brian.
I don't want them coming anywhere. Manufacturing jobs are at an all-time high in decades under Joe Biden. So I don't understand this about the manufacturing. And I would also say, I understand you're not an economic, whatever you'd like to call professional when it comes to this stuff. Neither am I, David. Economist, right. But with that being said, the facts are the facts, and the U.S. stock market's plunged more today than they did since the start of COVID. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. And you do have leading economists across the country and the world that are saying a global recession could be near. And when you look at the Tax Foundation, which is, by the way, a nonpartisan entity, they say that the average U.S. household could lose $2,100 per year. So while you're right, we don't have those expertise, I think a logical person would say this could be very serious. This could be very bad for the American consumer.
Well, look, that's all hypothetical. Like, there are people who are saying it could be. But let me ask you a question. Why would Trump do this? I asked this somebody earlier. I still haven't got an answer yet. Why would Trump be instituting these tariffs if it would be bad for America? Like regardless of if he's golfing today or not, why would he say, you know what? I really want to tank the U.S. economy. That'd be fun. Of course, he would want to do that. By the way, I turned on your comments.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have done that. I'm reading.
Don't worry about that
as we're talking.
Well, don't worry about that. I think there's a couple reasons. I would say number one, ego. I think the man wants to be a dictator. He looks up to dictators. He looks up to a Vladimir Putin. He looks up to a Kim Jong-un. All the comments he's made about Viktor Orban. He wants to be a dictator. He wants to be the man in charge, and he doesn't mind creating chaos. That's number one.
Let me clarify that. So you think it's because he wants to be a dictator, he's instituting tariffs? Because
I think he wants to show the world that he's the man in power. He's the man in charge, no matter who needs to suffer for it.
These are tariffs of personal ego basis.
I think he's a psychotic person. Yes, okay. I think that's number one.
Based. Either way, it's a personal,
absolutely
personality reason for the.
I think most of the things and the reasons why he does what he does are for the same two reasons why he's doing this. Number one, because he likes to create chaos and he loves power and he's a wannabe dictator. And number two, he wants to find a way to either enrich himself or enrich very close people around him, like the Elon Musks of the world. I would see this as no different. And it's a power trip for him. And that's why this man is so dangerous. He's so dangerous.
So I'm clear. So the two reasons that you believe that he's doing the tariffs is one, it's personality based, whether it be, as you mentioned, or two, because he wants to enrich his buddies, essentially, that are going to profit off of tariffs. How do his buddies profit off of tariffs?
Well, first of all, when you talk about
cheaper, like Nike, for example, the stock is down 8% today because they manufacture most of their goods in Vietnam. And now I think the reciprocal tariff in Vietnam is going to be, where is it? Somewhere. Oh, here it is. 46%. It's 90%, by the way, on our tariffs in Vietnam. So it's going to be 46%. So Nike stock plummeted based on the lower revenues. And they're going to have to bring manufacturing to either pay more for manufacturing or bring it to a place where it's cheaper based on tariffs. So I'm sure a millionaire owns Nike. How does that benefit companies who are now having to spend more money to relocate their factories to the U.S.? How does this benefit them?
This is not necessarily going to benefit large companies and rich people all over this country. Right. But I would say that it will probably enrich him. And to go into further detail, I'll make an analogy to what I am referring to. And I'm just going to talk about today.
Sure.
He's going to his golf course, Doral, in Florida, where the Live Golf Tour, which is funded by the government of Saudi Arabia, the Saudis, are paying Donald Trump's company to have the Live Golf Tournament there. He's going there to support it because they financially support him. And then after that, this is public. The White House has said he's going to be spending multiple days at his resort at Mar-a-Lago. Secret Service is going to be there.
Guess every weekend at Mar-a-Lago.
Right. And guess who gets paid? And guess who gets paid for that? Guess who owns Mar-a-Lago? Everything that Donald Trump does.
It's his house.
Okay, so first of all, this is his own property, resort property that he makes money off of. Every single time the Secret Service goes there, every single time he stays there, the American taxpayer has to pay for it, and a good blunt of that money goes, or brunt, I should say. Did I say blunt? Goes. Maybe he is taking a blunt today. I don't know. Goes towards his own companies and enriches him and his family. Everything virtually that Donald Trump does will benefit him, will benefit his bank account. And it's proven today when I told you he's going to Doral Golf Course. What would happen if, let's just say, Joe Biden, on a day where the world was on fire, I know you might not characterize it as that, but on a day where the economy goes down the toilet, since the last time this has happened was when we just started with COVID. And then Joe Biden went to visit his son at a painting auction where his son was selling his paintings. You and many other MAGA Republicans would lose their you-know-what. That's exactly what Donald Trump is doing. He should be in the White House. He should be doing his job. Instead, he's mingling with Tucker Carlson and the Saudis because they're spending millions of dollars to play on his Doral golf course. Morally, it is bankrupt, and he is bankrupting the country. And while doing that, he is enriching himself.
Okay. I mean, I hear what you're saying. Now, I'm not going to do that whole, well, what about stuff? Like Joe Biden had more vacation days, I think, than any other president in modern history. He spent most of his time at the beach, not Mar-a-Lago, and that's fine. But that being said, Donald Trump doesn't need to be president to become rich. He was rich before he became president. Different than most people who go to Washington, Donald Trump lost money after becoming president. I know you've heard an argument before.
Is his net worth more or less now since the first day he became president in 2016?
Oh, I don't know comparative to 2016.
It's 3 to 4 times estimated.
His net worth went down in his first term, not up. So clearly he didn't do it for the money. And I'll look it up and give you the stats. I'm not making it up. Okay. So but the thing is, he doesn't need Donald Trump, right? Who has buildings with his name on it, who has he could do whatever he wants with his name at this point to make money. He doesn't need to be president. Well, again, but so he doesn't need to be president to make money. So I don't believe
so if that's your argument, David, he doesn't need to be president to make money. Why is it then that after he became president, he started to sell trading cards? He started to sell pieces of his mugshot suit. He sells the Bibles. He sells the gold. Why is it, if it's not about making money, then why is it Jared Kushner in his administration made $2.1 billion from the Saudis? Why is it that his own daughter, who's now not in the administration, ironically, made $600 million in Chinese trademarks? Why is it that all the immediate people around him have made all this money around him, and now Donald Trump is worth 3 to 4 times more than he once was back when he became president on day one? If it wasn't about money, then why does he still hawk Bibles? Why does he do all these things? Why does he have right now? Why does he have members of the Saudi government and Live Golf on his golf course right now as we speak, if it's not about money?
Yeah. So again, people are allowed to make money, first of all. So we're not like, oh, you're president, you can't make money. I don't ever fault somebody for making money, first of all. Second of all, I don't think Trump is instituting these reciprocal tariffs just so he can make money. You've already outlined all of the ability he has. If everything you're saying is true, you've already outlined all of the ability that he has to make money and his family to make money. He doesn't even need the tariffs then if he's just doing them to make money.
So you think he's doing it because he cares about the American people? Even though all these people are suffering and
Who's
so
suffering?
many.
Who's suffering?
Well, I can give you an example right now. There's a Jeep dealership right here in Nevada, and they had to lay off 900 people.
Why?
Because of Donald Trump's tariffs.
How directly did the tariffs affect that Jeep dealership?
Taxes and prices and parts that are bought from other countries. It's very simple. 900. I can get you the actual company.
Jeep is an American company, right? Jeep is an American automobile company. It's Chrysler?
I believe it is. Yes,
Yeah, yeah, it's Chrysler.
I can cite you. I can cite you that story if my
No, I believe you that I believe you that that's the reason. But think about how crazy that is, right? We're talking about how tariffs supposedly benefit Donald Trump, and then we're talking about a Jeep dealership who sells cars that are supposedly American-made automobiles that's struggling because of tariffs on foreign manufactured items. Well, if it's an American car dealer manufacturer, why aren't they manufacturing those parts in the United States? I'm sure there's a lot of auto workers that are members of the United Auto Workers Union who are probably pretty upset that we're bringing in parts from other parts of the world, manufacturing them cheaper and taking those jobs.
Sure, that there's a lot of reasons for that.
It doesn't benefit Donald Trump.
Well, I tell you what, the 900 people that lost their jobs today, it certainly hasn't benefited them because they're jobless. And let me add something here.
Yeah, I mean, that sucks. We should be producing those parts in America so the tariffs wouldn't affect them.
Okay, explain this to me then. When we're dealing with a crashing market, which you don't have to be an economist, legend to be able to admit that the market is crashing at least today. Yeah. You think it's a good time to be laying off thousands of federal employees to retire? Do you think this is a well thought out plan that when the market is crashing, force people into retiring at the same time? David, is that a well thought out plan? You tell me.
Well, I don't think you time making the government more efficient with when it's best for the economy. You don't keep people employed in the federal government just to benefit the economy. I mean, clearly that's not what the taxpayers expect from the government, to employ people for economic reasons, right? We want people in the government working for the American people. And the idea about these DOGE cuts, they're very popular among American people, not just Republicans. There is a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse in the government. And this president has the courage to actually attack those and tackle them head on. They're exposing loans and spending that have not benefited the American people. There needs to be some accountability in the federal government. I don't think that's really that big of a deal. And again, that's why
we have inspector generals, isn't it? Isn't that why we've had inspector generals? And Donald Trump fired all of them.
53 inspector generals, in fact. And the reason why he fired the inspector generals is because they weren't holding the agencies accountable that they were charged with holding accountable. Some of these things that we've uncovered, the millions of dollars in misappropriated money, it happened under these inspector generals' watches. So how do you keep the trust in people that haven't done their job? When the fox is guarding the hen house and the hens are getting eaten, well, of course you got to replace the fox. And so
just fire everybody. Just fire every inspector general. Fire them all, and don't speak with them. Don't have conversations with them. Don't try to figure things out with them. Just fire all of them because they claim, oh, you missed that, you missed that. So we're just going to fire everybody at a point where the market has crashed. I don't think, David, that's a very well thought out plan. I think it's atrocious timing. And I think that it's embarrassing, and I don't think they really thought this one through at all. That's my opinion.
No, I get it. But at the same time, I think bold action and bold leadership, it takes courage, and no president in.
Do you think it's bold leadership to, again, I'm going to go back to this because I'm surprised that you're okay with this, but I want to get your thought. You think when the S&P falls 4% and we've had the biggest stock market downfall since COVID, and Donald Trump decides to fly out to Mar-a-Lago and a live golf tournament at Doral?
I don't think the president should time his trips based on performance of stock market portfolios. I don't think it matters. But second of all, this is what I don't understand, right? We're upset that these companies, these massive companies, these quote unquote 1%ers, as everybody used to call them, are losing money today in the stock market. So whatever happened to holding everybody paying their fair share, and big companies being responsible for things and all this stuff. So big companies. Shouldn't the left be celebrating big companies taking less profits?
You're comparing ending tax loopholes for the top 1% in this country and making sure that the top 1%.
It's not just loopholes. It's not just loopholes.
People and taxes and percentages. You're comparing the top 1% and billionaires paying their fair share to middle America and people that own businesses that have to fire their employees, and people all over, and American consumers, people that could be making minimum wage, by the way, American consumers having to pay more and hurting them in their own pockets, and the average American family spending $2,000 more a year, which is, by the way, a lot for somebody that's making $35,000 to $40,000 a year. You're comparing that to taxing the top 1%.
Listen,
billionaires.
I hear what you're saying. The thing is, the economy wasn't doing well. And look, you and I had this conversation when Biden was president. I remember I was talking about the economy, and you started giving me sites, specifics on how the economy is improving in certain metrics. As I said, but the people don't feel. The people. I remember having this conversation with you, and the people don't feel like the economy was good, right? More people now feel like the country is moving in a better direction than under Obama. So the question you have to ask yourself, and you talk about middle America suffering, right? You have to talk about middle America suffering. Yeah. When jobs are exported so companies can make more money, that doesn't help middle America. When manufacturing moves overseas, Mexico to Canada, that doesn't benefit America. And by the way, everyone's freaking out about these tariffs. I'm sure at this point people know, at least I hope they know, that almost every other major country that we do business with charges us massive tariffs. We pay tariffs. So when people are like, tariffs or taxes, why is it okay for countries to charge America tariffs? Well, everybody does. China charges us a 67% tariff. The European Union, 39% tariff. Vietnam, 90%. Taiwan, 64%. Japan, they're our friends, 46% tariffs. India, 52% tariffs. I can go on and on and on and on. Every country we export to charges us at least half in tariffs, and we go and roll out a reciprocal tariff, and on other countries a 10% tariff, and all of a sudden we're the bad guys. Why is it American? You talk about
has this ever happened before? When was the last time?
I don't know. You talk about the middle class. Listen, you talk about middle class America and middle America, the working class. The working class doesn't benefit when China charges us a tariff. These hurt American families, and the president is taking bold action.
All right. Well, if you want to talk, all right. Well,
this country work for Americans again. So that's not partisan.
So if you want to say that this is helping families and working class families,
it will, absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. The company that I was referring to, and I misspoke, is Stellantis, Nevada. And they said today that they're laying off 900 workers at 5 U.S. facilities, including one right here in Nevada, and pausing production at an assembly plant, each in Mexico and Canada. Those are 900 people. Okay. Donald Trump brought in the tariffs to a 10% baseline on all imports yesterday. And as you know, following these 25% tariffs, 900 Americans just with this one company alone today have been laid off. So I would go talk to them and their families about how you think this is such a great plan, and it's so great for America in the long run, while Donald Trump is playing golf with the Saudi government today.
Yeah, I know. I feel terrible for those people. And again, everybody sympathizes with somebody who loses their job, especially when they can't control it. They show up to work every day, do what they're supposed to do, and then through factors outside their control, everybody sympathizes with those people. I do, especially. That being said,
everybody does. I believe.
Well, they should. No, I don't think. Well, yeah, I believe Donald Trump doesn't like when people lose their job. I do.
You think so? Wait a second. Hold on. I respectfully, completely disagree.
You think he doesn't care?
This is a man who made a living off of telling people that they were fired. This is a man who gloats about letting people go. Laura Loomer,
when
who
they
is,
deserve
by the way,
it. When
Laura
they deserve
Loomer,
it. Those 900 people didn't deserve it.
Really?
Yeah.
So the government workers across the country who were never written up, never got any warnings, did their job. Some of those people that I actually interviewed on this show
not
fired for no reason.
That's a different situation.
Well, they're getting fired directly because of Donald Trump's actions. And this is a man who made a living off of saying,
Brian,
I'm fired.
What is he supposed to do? If you have taxpayer-funded positions that are not serving a public purpose and is not in the best interest of the public, do you keep those people employed just because it would be mean to let them go? Or do you do what's best for the taxpayer? Listen, decisions are tough. Presidents have to make really tough decisions, and not always is the outcome going to be great for a lot of people. But it doesn't mean you don't take action because it could have negative effects. Same thing with these 900 people in Las Vegas. It sucks for them. They didn't do anything to deserve it. But at the same time, I believe a lot more jobs are going to be created, good, high-paying jobs, because of these tariffs, because more things will be manufactured in the United States.
Here's how serious Donald Trump is. He allowed Laura Loomer to go to the White House yesterday.
Right.
Who was a complete imbecile with zero credibility. And she had a private conversation with Donald Trump. I wonder what else happened there, but we'll leave that one alone. And then Laura Loomer apparently tells Donald Trump that there are several members of his administration that are leaking information to the press. You're fired. This is a guy who smiles and gloats when he lets people go, when he fires people. He uses it as vengeance. FBI agents and people in the FBI who were doing their job, who were asked to investigate January 6th, were fired for no other reason and no other explanation other than, see you later. This is what Donald Trump wants. You investigated January 6th. By the way, people died on January 6th. Police officers were beaten on January 6th. Almost 1,500 people were convicted because of their behavior on January 6th. And he decided to fire these people. Again, this is the man who literally has made a living off of gloating about firing people. That's the fundamental difference between somebody like Donald Trump and, your average politician. I don't think most politicians, even Republicans, are happy when people lose their jobs. But I can look you in the eye and tell you that Donald Trump is a guy who's very vindictive. You know this. And
I don't agree with you. As a matter of fact, anybody who ever meets Donald Trump, nobody walks away from a meeting with Donald Trump and goes, man, that was a vindictive meeting. Everybody actually likes Donald Trump when they walk away with a meeting with him. He gets along with a lot of people. It's only the fake news narratives. Yes, that makes it seem.
So
Bill Maher said it. Bill Maher. Okay, Bill Maher, who has never been a fan of. I mean, it's relevant because Bill Maher, who has never been a fan of Donald Trump, said really nasty things about Donald Trump. Said, actually, he said, I'm not going to prejudge him. I'm going to go meet with Donald Trump. By the way, he did. They had a great meeting. He's going to talk about it tomorrow, in fact. But he said, I've actually met Donald Trump before. I have a clip. I aired it on my show. And he goes, and he's actually a polite person. He's easy to get along with. He has a great personality. Everybody who meets Donald Trump walks away feeling actually pretty good about the meeting.
Really? All right. So do you think, hold on.
He's just a sociopath who wants to see people suffer. Nobody who knows Donald Trump thinks that.
Really? So how do you think Zelensky
I take that back. Some people think that. But
how did Zelensky feel? How do you think Zelensky walked out of that meeting feeling that? First of all, let me just start with Bill Maher for a minute. I don't care what Bill Maher says about some meeting in the White House where Kid Rock invited him to. Okay, Bill Maher.
Isn't that important?
Because Bill Maher is a comedian and he's not a lawmaker. Bill Maher is not a policymaker. I don't care what Rosie O'Donnell says, and I don't care what Bill Maher says. He is a comedian and an entertainer, and I'm sure he wants Donald Trump on his show. Okay, you know what I care? What world leaders say walking out of meetings, and that Zelensky meeting was an embarrassment. And I care a lot more.
It was an embarrassment for Zelensky as well. There was a deal that was negotiated for mineral rights. He backed off the deal. That whole situation, and
he backed off the deal. What do you mean?
The mineral rights deal.
Zelensky was the one a few weeks ago that wanted to sign the peace deal, and it was Vladimir Putin.
Zelensky keeps going back and forth, and he meets with this country, and he's like, no peace. We want troops. Then he meets with this country. He's like, no peace. I don't want troops. He can't decide what he wants. It doesn't. That is irrelevant.
A couple weeks ago, he wanted to sign off on a peace deal that Donald Trump had agreed to.
Until he decided he didn't.
And then Putin decided to put out an airstrike that killed innocent women and children.
Listen, I'm not going to get into a Ukraine versus Russia debate because there are so many nuances to that. And I don't have enough information to know who's telling the truth in that world. But there have been reciprocal strikes on both sides. And I don't touch Ukraine because that is something that I don't even fully understand.
I know, but David, you said that, everybody that walks out of a Donald Trump meeting feels good. Okay, first of all,
people who walk in there with good intentions, yes.
Well, sure. It is very simple to say that you could be two-faced. Listen, half of his own administration in the first administration didn't support him. Look what happened to his own vice president. Look at the people around him, like the Stephanie Grishams of the world and many others. So many people that have been very close to Donald Trump don't walk out of things. It usually doesn't end very well. Michael Cohen went to jail. Okay. Navarro went to jail. Steve Bannon went to jail. Papadopoulos went to jail.
Yes, they went to jail, and it wasn't because of Trump. They went to jail because of a fake witch hunt called Crossfire Hurricane, which all those documents soon are going to be released, and people can see for themselves
just
how the Obama administration coordinated with our intelligence organizations, not just in the United States, but globally, to produce fake evidence to spy on the president's campaign. And then when they couldn't find anything on Trump with Russia collusion, what'd they do? They put George Papadopoulos in jail. They put all these other people in jail.
Because he lied to the FBI.
He didn't lie to the FBI.
Okay, according to our courts, he did. That's your opinion if you don't think he did.
First of all, if you read his book, and I have it behind me, he didn't lie to the FBI. It was a scam. Is what it was.
According to his book, Papadopoulos, according to his book, he wanted to make money because of what that clown writes in his book. By the way, he's a convicted felon.
He's not a convicted felon. He's a pardoned innocent American.
Okay, well, at one point he was a convicted felon. Okay,
so would you pardoned person? He's a pardoned innocent American.
So according to that characterization, you would say those who beat police officers on January 6th.
Why are we going back to January 6th?
Because you're talking about pardons. So I want to ask you
you said he was a convicted. I said no, he was pardoned. That's the only reason why I mentioned pardon. Let me talk about January 6th.
But in general terms, if you're a convicted felon,
Yeah.
and the president pardons you,
Mhm.
I still can
Well, you can
consider
call
you a
people whatever you
felon.
want. I believe a pardon, it means
All
you're
right.
pardoned.
So would you hang out and have fun with guys that beat police officers on January 6th?
Actually, I
They're
know
pardoned, right?
I do a lot of work with January 6th organizations. I know a lot of victims of the January 6th.
Okay, but that's not what I asked you.
Yeah.
Would you hang out and associate yourself and be friends with somebody who beat a cop on January 6th? Is that somebody you'd want to be friends with?
I don't know anybody that beat a cop on January 6th.
You don't? Okay, I
No, I
know
don't know
you
anybody
don't.
that
I
beat a
know
cop
you
on
don't
January
know
6th.
anybody personally. That wasn't my question. My
Yeah.
question was, if somebody pled guilty, and we know many people did, beating police officers on January 6th.
What people pled to, and with respect to January 6th, is not what actual people did
All right,
on
well,
January 6th.
we
So
know that there were people that beat cops because there's
I don't
video
know
of them
that.
beating cops. Okay, yes, you do.
I'll
There
take your word for it.
David, you know, come on.
I
you're
don't
being
know. You're saying
disingenuous
I
to
know.
me.
I haven't seen the video,
David,
but I'll take your word for it.
You're telling me you haven't seen video of anybody on January 6th assaulting a police officer, whether
No.
it be pepper
The
spraying
video I
them.
have seen, I haven't. No, I've seen videos of people peacefully walking around the Capitol. I've seen photos of. I've seen
You haven't
videos
seen
of Ashley
any
Babbitt.
violence
I've seen
towards-
a video of Ashley Babbitt being murdered
Can't
from
ask- I'm
behind
not
a piece
talking
of
about that.
glass.
I'm
I've
not
seen a
talking about that.
video.
You haven't seen video of officers being crushed and people
No,
beating
I saw
officers.
videos of officers
It's-
waving people
all right.
into the Capitol. That's what I've
Mesmerizing.
seen.
Mesmerizing that
Well,
you're telling
telling
me
you
you
what
didn't
I've seen.
see any violence towards Capitol police officers.
I didn't see it. I didn't see the videos. I'm not saying they don't exist. I haven't seen the videos. The videos I've seen tell a different story.
All right. So David,
Yeah.
I've seen all the videos. Okay. I've watched everything.
Okay.
I've studied January 6th. There were officers that were beaten on January 6th.
Okay,
And
I'll take your word
140
for it.
were injured. So my question to you still stands. Even though you claim you haven't seen it, are you telling me that if somebody beat a cop on January 6th with their own baton, they pled guilty in a court of law?
Yeah.
That's somebody that you would associate yourself with.
If somebody was beating a cop on January 6th with the intent to injure the police officer, I would not be comfortable hanging out with them.
Thank you for admitting that. But now that leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
You just said if they're pardoned,
Mhm.
let's wipe that clean. So if they're pardoned, why wouldn't you hang out with them? You know why? I think I know the answer.
Go ahead.
Because they did something very bad. Okay. If you're a convicted felon and you're pardoned, that doesn't mean that you have a clean slate. We still know what you did.
Okay. There's two different things you're talking here. You're conflating people who didn't do anything and were pardoned with people who might have done something and were pardoned.
Well, not might.
They're
They
two
did.
different people. Just because somebody was, even if somebody wasn't pardoned, let's go even a step further. I
Okay.
have friends that are quote unquote convicted felons, people I actually like a lot, people that I've come to respect and in a lot of cases trust. Just because somebody was convicted of a felony, did their time and returned to society, it doesn't tarnish who they are for the rest. I mean, this used to be liberals used to believe this, that a felon could be, you could be a felon and should be able to return back to society. Liberals supported voting rights for felons. I support voting rights for felons. Just because somebody's a felon doesn't define who they are for the rest of their lives. What's the point of having a justice system
It
if you do
certainly
something bad one time and for the rest of your life it's a scarlet letter and you can't return to society? So no, I don't agree that just because somebody's a quote unquote convicted felon that it tarnishes them and it would cause somebody to turn their back towards them. I think that's a very bad thing for our community, especially considering a lot of people that are convicted felons for bullshit reasons. And you go, I sorry, we're on radio. Because of you have to delay, right?
You're good. Go ahead.
Because of, you could put drug charges or a lot of
David, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
What are you saying?
What I'm saying is specifically in certain situations, just because somebody gets pardoned doesn't mean they don't have a past. And you prove that to me by admitting, because there were police officers that were beat on January 6th, whether you want to acknowledge that or not.
I don't know. Right. You're saying they are, and it's fine.
I'm not saying there are. The courts are, because they were convicted of very serious charges, including
a lot of
battery
people
and assault.
admitted to doing a lot of things that they didn't do because they wanted to avoid going to jail for a very long time.
I understand you feel that way, but they have an opportunity to defend themselves in a courtroom. The only point that I was really trying to make is, when it comes to a Steve Bannon, when it comes to a Navarro, when it comes to all these people, well, it was the deep state, it was George Soros, it was rigged. It's always rigged when it doesn't fit the MAGA agenda, right? I'm surprised.
Biden pardoned Hunter Biden.
Yep.
Why? What was the basis? Do you recall? I know you do. We talked about this.
Sure.
What was the basis for Joe Biden pardoning Hunter? What did he say?
Sure. Let me answer that. Let me answer that, but let me preface it by saying this. There is a fine line difference between pardoning somebody who at one point was convicted for non-violent crimes. Okay. There was a gun charge where he had an unloaded.
What violence did he commit?
Hold on. I'll get to that.
Okay.
He had an unloaded gun. Okay. and the other charge was, I think, tax evasion.
Yeah, right.
There is a fine line between pardoning somebody when you have basically everybody in the Trump administration, including Pam Bondi, including Kash Patel, who said they would go after the Biden family,
Right.
and somebody who commits a violent crime who beats a cop. The difference between a Papadopoulos and Hunter Biden is this. He worked in Donald Trump's administration. Hunter Biden never worked in Joe Biden's administration. You take an oath when you work for the president of the United States. You know, you probably shouldn't break the law. He did. He lied to the FBI. Hunter Biden never worked in Joe Biden's administration.
I don't think that's a fair parallel. Biden said he pardoned his son because his son wouldn't have been prosecuted if his last name wasn't Biden, essentially. He asserted it was a political prosecution. And as a matter of fact, on his way out, whether he signed it or his auto pen did, on his way out, he pardoned anybody that he deemed could potentially be prosecuted for political reasons. So if the former president of the United States can believe that prosecutions can be political and pardoned his son as a result, can we not make the same parallel to a lot of people that were prosecuted for political reasons while Donald Trump was president and give them the same benefit of saying, okay, well, if you're prosecuted for political reasons, we should allow that pardon to suggest maybe you were innocent.
Well, here's the deal. There's a lot of people that would make the case that never been charged on a gun charge ever before, and the way they handled the Hunter Biden thing. But here's another
January 6th defendants were charged with. Nobody has ever been charged with before for doing the same thing.
Because we never had what took place of storming the Capitol and trying to overthrow a free and fair election. You
can't say one prosecution is novel, but the other one isn't. The things that Donald Trump was charged with in four separate indictments, nobody's ever charged anybody with.
Because we've never had a president who had such disregard for the law and no respect for the law.
The law is black and white, though. You don't have to have this gray area. If we're prosecuting people for political reasons, it's bad across the board,
David,
whether you're Hunter Biden or President Trump.
David, to me, there's no gray area and there's no similarity between what Hunter Biden did and what was charged with and what some people did on January 6th, beating cops and trying to overthrow a free and fair election and screaming out, hang Mike Pence, and desecrating on Nancy Pelosi's desk and destruction of property, to me, is far more serious than somebody that cheats on their taxes. Okay. So there's no parallel.
I know you have strong feelings for January 6th. I just don't agree.
What do you mean I have strong feelings? Don't you think Mike Pence has strong feelings? Don't you think many of the politicians that were in there that day have very strong feelings? Don't you think people who care about our democracy have strong feelings when people stormed the Capitol? They tried to overthrow an election, and Donald Trump to this day still. I'll tell you what I have strong feelings.
Strong feelings, the opposite side. Look, there's two sides to every coin, right? So as strong as you feel about January 6th, I personally know a lot of people who feel the opposite. Feels January 6th was a big setup, and I do
there's
believe
people out there.
And when Nancy Pelosi's communications from January 6th come out, I think people are going to be shocked to find out how much they want January 6th.
Just like the Epstein files were released, right? We saw those MAGA morons.
That's a whole nother thing.
No, it's not a whole nother thing. It goes me back to what we're talking about. Pam Bondi is an idiot, and you had these right-wing morons who were on the steps there with their binders, and we were like, we're going to find out all those names on there. Oh, well, it's very convenient to me, right? That none of that information was put out there. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that Donald Trump was on Epstein's flight log 7 times, and that Donald Trump and Epstein were once very close friends, according to Jeffrey Epstein. But I'm sure it has nothing to do with that, right? Nothing to do with that, or nothing to do with the fact that we just had no heads roll, nobody losing their job, by the way. Apparently, people need to be held accountable. I agree with you. But yet, somehow on this signal chat, this guy Goldberg gets in there, and nothing to see here, everybody. The investigation is over. Let's move on to something else. If Joe Biden did that, somebody in his administration did that, you guys would be talking about this 24/7 until there was accountability. There's no accountability here. None.
I think if anybody spent any time looking into what happened during the Biden administration, there would be a lot more things that people would demand accountability for. The difference is everything that happens in the Trump administration, everything Trump does is subject to this media scrutiny when they're afraid to ask questions to Joe Biden. Literally every day, the Biden White House would lie to the entire country, and the press would sit there and fawn over whatever information they wanted to spoon feed them. Yet everything, I literally can't think of anything that they told the truth about during the Biden administration. The big one, how about the biggest lie told during the Biden administration, that somehow he was competent to be president? They lied to me even, and now after the fact, people inside the administration admit that he wasn't competent. But yet the media never asked a single question about his fitness after going to Europe and embarrassing us in front of the world, being lost.
That's actually not true. So there was one person, there was one person, one aide by the way. One person, not you just characterize it as his administration. You had one aide that tried to make money and is selling a book and hawking a book.
So when people say bad things about Biden, he's hawking a book and making money. When people say bad things about Trump, they're just telling the truth.
You said the administration, and I am telling you, and I'm correcting the record, that there is one person that put out a book that was an aide, a low-level aide, and also said that things he said was taken out of context. So you're taking that and making it as if the entire administration was lying. Listen, Joe Biden was not the same guy he was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Okay, fine. Fair enough. But to characterize that as all they do is lie is throwing something at a wall and hope it sticks. Okay. You have Caroline Leavitt, who doesn't even know how tariffs work. You have Caroline Leavitt talking about 206. I'm just going by the last week, by the way.
How does she not understand how tariffs work?
She said the American consumer wasn't going to pay for it. She didn't even know how it worked. She also said on that podium that of the 267 people, the El Salvador prison where they were deported, okay, the only evidence that the White House has shown that they were, quote, in gangs is referencing tattoos, when we know that there are people that have come forward from families of some of those people that have no criminal record, no evidence that they were ever in gangs. And what does Caroline Leavitt say?
Are they Americans? Would anybody
deport? Doesn't matter whether they're American.
No, hold on, it does, Brian. It does matter.
So if you're not American,
No, I have a better question. Forget, American, I'll just take that one level. Was any single person who was deported to El Salvador legally present in the United States? Any one of them?
That is not my argument. But if you are illegal,
it should be, Brian. These people are criminals.
David, hear me out on this.
Sure.
If you are undocumented, even though I disagree with being a nonviolent criminal and being documented, but for argument's sake, okay, no problem. Does that mean that you don't deserve due process and that you should be deported to and sent to one of the highest maximum security prisons in the world with no due process? Just because the White House says that they have tattoos? That's ridiculous.
If a little old lady from Mexico was making tortillas and selling them in her neighborhood and she wasn't causing a problem, I would not suggest she be deported to El Salvador. These people, these MS-13 gang members.
There's no evidence that they don't have.
Yes, there is evidence of it. The fact that you say there's no evidence of it is false. And second of all, these people came to the United States. They took over entire apartment complexes. They were raping and murdering innocent Americans. And Trump said, enough is enough. We're not going to have criminals in the United States illegally here murdering Americans. I'm shipping them the hell out. And that's exactly what it is. And Americans support that, Brian.
So you're
Americans are happy about this, Brian.
When it comes to rapists, yes. But guess what? You can't just say they are. You have to show evidence and prove that the people that you sent to one of the highest maximum.
What should we do?
I'm telling you.
Tell me what we should do instead.
First of all, it's one thing to deport somebody. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about sending people to the highest maximum security prison. And the only evidence, and by the way, the White House hasn't even shown evidence that all those people are rapists or gang members. The only thing they've referenced is some tattoos. Some of those family members have already hired attorneys, and they've shown evidence that these people, some of them are bad people. Some of them are not. And they've shown evidence that some of these people, while undocumented, have no criminal history, and there's no evidence of them being in a gang.
Where are they from?
That's what it doesn't matter where they're from.
No, it does. Where are they from?
It doesn't matter where they're from if there's no evidence that they're in a gang.
You want to talk about due process, right? Where are they from?
It doesn't matter.
Why doesn't the Venezuelan government take them out of the prison and offer them the due process? Why don't they take them back? Because they want them there just as bad as we do, Brian. That's the thing. These people aren't orphans. They left one country, snuck into the United States, engaged in criminal behavior here. We kicked them out, and their country isn't coming for them. Why isn't their country rescuing them from that mean old El Salvador jail, Brian?
Let me explain that, and let me explain how our own country works, okay?
Why doesn't their country do something for them?
I will answer that. Okay. But in our country, let's start here, then I'll go there. We have something called due process.
For
hold on,
citizens, not illegal criminals.
You're an attorney, and you know that. And just because somebody is undocumented and we think they might be in a gang does not mean that we send them to the highest maximum security jail in the world.
We do now. So they better think twice before coming here and committing crimes in America.
Well, guess what? Then we have people that do not deserve to be in that prison. And you talk to me about other governments. Guess what? We live in the United States of America. Okay. we give people due process here. I would love everybody in this country to be legal, but just because somebody's illegal and we think they might be in a gang, they might have done some horrible things, which, by the way, there's evidence to the contrary that some of these people have never committed a violent crime in their life. It doesn't mean, David, that we send these people to El Salvador with a bunch of horrible criminals who have done some horrible things. There are people in those jails right now who have never committed a violent crime in their life. They don't deserve to be there, David. And it doesn't matter where they're from. It doesn't matter where they're from.
I'm sorry. I don't agree with you. You know why? Maybe they should think twice about coming into the United States illegally, because that could happen to them. You don't get to sneak into a country just because a country is kind. You don't get to sneak into a country just because a country is just. I'm sorry. You know what? If you want to come to the United States, do it illegally. Claim asylum. These people weren't even here on asylum. They were not even legally here, and yet many of them, if not all of them, were involved in criminal activity. So
that's not true.
Weren't even supposed. They're terrorists.
No,
Brian.
That's not true.
They weren't supposed to be here, and they're terrorizing American citizens.
No, that's not true.
Osama bin Laden walked out of an airplane in New York City, should we have said, look, we would love to do terrible things to you, but instead I'm going to let you go to trial. And if you're found not guilty, we're going to let you walk around in our streets? Hell no. You're a criminal. Okay. Worse, you're an enemy combatant, and you're treated as such, not given the privileges of American justice.
The White House has failed to show evidence that all of these people are violent criminals, because they're not. That's factually inaccurate, and that's number one. And there's a fine line difference between somebody who is in this country illegally, who did break the law, who has never committed a violent crime, and then sending somebody to this high maximum security prison and saying, well, we believe that they're rapists, and yes, we believe that they're terrorists. Let me be very clear. All these people are not terrorists. We know that for sure.
All involved with MS-13. They were all involved with MS-13.
No, that's not true. No, that's not true.
What evidence? That weren't.
That's the problem, David. The White House hasn't presented evidence, and some of these people have had attorneys, their family members, some of them who live in this country, that have given out their name, their age, and given out all the information on their background. Never a violent crime committed. That's the problem.
Why isn't their country, which they're not in anymore for whatever reason, why don't they go and petition El Salvador for their citizen back?
So your standard...
It's a good question, isn't it?
And I'm going to answer it. So your standard in the United States of America is as follows. So we had something called 9/11, and Al-Qaeda, members of Al-Qaeda from Afghanistan and other parts of the world came into this country and committed some horrible acts. And the government there did not want to be involved, or nowhere near as involved as the United States. Do you want to know why? Okay, because not every government works the same way the United States of America works. We have people coming into this country that do horrible things. Then they go back into parts of their country, and their government does not go after them, just like Hamas and Iran. And I could name you probably 100 other examples. We are the United States of America, and our standard and the way we do things here should be very different than the standards of other countries around the world that harbor terrorists. Okay, that's number one. But number two, this is the point that I'm getting at. I'm not talking about terrorists, David. I'm sure some of those people are really bad people. I'm sure that some of those people are part of this gang. I have no problem with them being in that facility. Problem I have, and it goes back to what we've been
you don't care if they are in a gang? If the evidence shows they're in a gang, you don't have a problem with them being deported and sent to that facility without due process?
What I am simply saying, David, is that everybody deserves due process. And if you're going to deport somebody because
what process, though? What due process?
I'm telling you, if it's proven that somebody is illegal and they're deported, even though I might disagree with a nonviolent criminal being deported, it's still legal for them to be deported. Our government has the right to do that. I can disagree with it, but fine. I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is sending some of these people who we know were not in gangs, that are not violent criminals. Some, not all, some. They deserve due process and a defense if our government is saying that they raped people, and if our government is saying, well, we're going by a tattoo, when there's evidence that clearly... One guy, I'm going to give you an example.
Sure.
I listened to his mother speak, and I'm forgetting his name at the moment. But there's one guy, a non-violent criminal, okay, who was in this country illegally, who has a tattoo on his arm.
He was in the country illegally.
Okay, yes, but he was one of those people sent to El Salvador. Okay. And the White House specifically talked about his tattoo. Okay, Caroline Leavitt made a brief statement about it. And it was proven by his family members that it was a soccer team tattoo. He was a fan of a soccer team, a nonviolent criminal. And then Caroline Leavitt said that it was a clerical error. Well, guess what? If it was a clerical error, then get that guy out of that prison. If you want to, make sure he doesn't come back into this country, that's one thing. But don't lie and say that this guy is a gang member and a violent criminal. That is not due process, and they are lying. The White House is lying to the American people, David.
But you're saying they're lying. Again, you want evidence, and I get that. But you're saying they're lying based on what you believe, not necessarily what because we don't have the evidence. And I'll agree with you. It'd be nice to see what evidence they might be relying on, and maybe we'll get it. I don't know. Yep. But the fact remains, right, that if people are illegally in the United States and they're involved in organized criminal activity, whether it be gang or whatever you want to call it, what process do we want to offer them before deporting them? Do we want to release them into the communities where they can commit crime? Do we want to put them in jail? Like what? And this is the problem. When you're in the United States illegally, you've already committed a crime. You've entered our country without going through the legal measures to get here. If you had a right, listen, Brian, we have very liberal asylum laws. We have a lot of people here on asylum, and I'm not talking about people that are legally present in the United States on asylum visas. Now, if you're able to be in this country because we've said, hey, whatever country you're fleeing, you're allowed to come here. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about people who have never even told the government that they're even here. Why are we trying to protect people that are not even, if they had a legitimate reason to be here, they could walk to any single immigration center and say, hey, listen, I'm here illegally, but I'm fleeing crime. I want asylum.
Okay,
they aren't doing that. So what
David,
do we do with
2 points. So 2 points. Yeah. First of all, I do find it interesting that when it comes to somebody that's in this country illegally, regardless of whether they're a nonviolent criminal or not, right. You want the law to be, the standard to be way up here and make sure that people come in here illegally. And if they're not, boom, out of here. Okay. No, doesn't matter.
They're not here legally.
Okay. I understand that. But then when it comes to things that don't fit your narrative, like when it comes to a MAGA Republican or a Donald Trump or somebody that committed horrible crimes on January 6th.
Right, but you want to treat January 6th problem just like MS-13 people. What evidence do you have?
Here's the difference.
Sure.
There was evidence proven in a court of law.
Have you looked at that evidence?
Hold on. Let me finish. Okay. Then we get that. Every single one of those people had the right to due process, to have an attorney that defended them in a court of law. Some of them pled guilty. Now, you can disagree with it. You could think that they were overpunished. That's fine, but that's a different subject. The point I'm trying to make is every single one of those people, and many of those people were white supremacist terrorists, domestic terrorists.
Based on what evidence?
Based on the evidence that was provided in a court of law, based on video, based on friends' testimony, based on their social media accounts, based on security cameras.
Standards, Brian.
You're using the same standards. No, I'm not. Because the people that were sent to El Salvador that you are claiming are all gang members did not have due process. They were never seen in a court of law. All the people that you are defending, all of them, MAGA supporters, had the right to defend themselves in a court of law. Now, if you don't like the way the courts worked and you think it was unfair and it was politically motivated, you have the right to your opinion. But the point I'm trying to make is these people that are in that jail right now did not have the right to due process. They were not in a courtroom with a defense. And all we've heard is, well, the White House is claiming that they did this, this, and this. Those people that were prosecuted on January 6th had the right to a defense. Many of them pled guilty, and they had the opportunity to defend themselves, and they had attorneys, defense attorneys. No. How do you not understand that fundamental difference?
Yeah, look, we're talking in circles now. I think the people were not treated fairly on January 6th. I think a lot of people admitted to crimes that they didn't commit because they're worried about.
But they had the chance to defend themselves, whether you agree with it or not.
They didn't have legitimate chances to defend themselves. The same standard
but
you're
these
using.
People in El Salvador did. Okay, those people did. Did they have the right to defend themselves?
The same standard that you're relying upon to suggest that some of the MS-13 gang members didn't deserve to go to El Salvador is the same standard I'm applying to the January 6th defendants, because I've had just like you, had personal conversations with the families of some of the people deported. I've had personal conversations with people who were involved in January 6th, and I heard different stories than what has been presented.
You might have heard different stories, but guess what? The stories were heard in a courtroom, and our courts decided that many of those people committed crimes. The people in El Salvador, regardless of what stories you've heard from January 6th, the people in El Salvador, all of them did not have the right to a defense. All of them did not have the right to be in front of a judge. All of them did not have due process.
All of them not legally present in the United States. All of them guilty of crimes just by the very fact that they are here illegally. I don't know why we skip over this fact so
I'm not
blatantly.
Skipping over it. I said this 10 times. I'll say it again. If you're in this country illegally and you're deported, even though I might disagree with a nonviolent criminal being deported, that's one thing. That's not where my frustration lies. I'll repeat it again. They're in one of the worst jails in the world, and many of these people have not committed violent crimes. And the
then
White
why
House
isn't their home country petitioning for them to come back to their home country? I don't understand that.
Because it doesn't work like that.
Why not?
Because Donald Trump had a deal. And if these other countries get involved, the mess that they would be creating by doing that. By the way, in this jail, nobody's sent out. Nobody. Take a look at the history of this jail, because I have.
If an American citizen was, let's say there was an American citizen illegally in Mexico for whatever reason, and the president there decides, you know what, I'm going to take a harsh stance against Americans because I'm mad at them, right? And sends me to El Salvador. Is the American government not going to call the government of El Salvador and say, you have an American citizen there and he hasn't had due process, we would like him back? Would that not happen? We go and negotiate for people that are held illegally in prisons all over the world all the time. We get them from Russia. Russia gets them from us. This happens all the time, prisoner exchanges. Why aren't there countries coming for them if they shouldn't be there? I don't understand that.
I'll tell you why. Because they are in the highest maximum security prison you can find, where literally nobody gets to leave. You can look at the history
of the governments
it is virtually
let's assume they're Venezuelan. So the Venezuelan government can't call El Salvador and say, you have one of our citizens, we want him back. That hasn't happened?
It has happened in the past. But what I am trying to tell you is right now, in the present time, it can't happen. It is virtually impossible, and it won't happen. But I do have some people on the YouTube, because I know
I've been watching these comments. I'm kind of afraid.
No, don't be afraid. There are just a couple. We'll just take a couple if that's right, because I know you're going to run. A couple people in the super chat that want to ask you a few questions.
You have a very active chat, It's very impressive.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's a conversation where I know a lot of people want to get involved. All right. Yeah. So let's go to Riot Town on the super chat, who says, David acts like a guy that would give Stormy Daniels the worst 13 seconds. Okay, my producer put that statement up. Okay, I didn't do that, David. Okay, I don't think that's really a question, but hey, maybe
I like it.
Maybe I would. I think David would last at least 15 seconds. Let's give him a little bit. Let's give him a little bit of credit there. All right. Ida says, can Elon manage to take money from the Treasury, crash the market, buy and sell? Can they possibly do it multiple times? Isn't it about 1.4 trillion being gone? All right, go ahead, David. Respond to that.
I don't understand the question. What do you mean?
I mean, she's asking the question, can Elon manage to take money from the Treasury, crash the market, buy and sell? I think we're talking about maybe some insider trading that could be going on.
I haven't heard any accusations of insider trading except for everybody in Congress. But other than that, no, I haven't heard anything about it. Again, Elon has plenty of money. A lot of people are concerned that he's going to steal their social security number. I don't know what he's going to do with it, but that's not my concern.
All right, fair enough. By the way, somebody in the chat did defend you and said you would at least last 45 seconds.
Yes, thank you.
So I just want to say you do have a defender.
Stormy Daniels, she's talented.
You do have a defender in the chat. Ladybug says there is an illegal immigrant on trial in Maryland for killing a woman. He is being given due process as law says. Well, yes, then I would be okay with that. Okay, so Reaver says, please ask this guy exactly how one country pays a tariff imposed in another country. U.S. tariffs mean U.S.-based companies pay the U.S. Well, then the comment just left, so I wasn't able to finish it. Sorry. Okay, so there we go. Now it's back. U.S. tariffs mean U.S.-based companies pay the U.S. government a penalty for importing foreign goods and materials.
Well, the companies, if there are U.S. companies and they're manufacturing in a foreign country, they're going to have to pay to bring it back, which is the incentive to get them to manufacture here. That's sort of the function of it. We want those jobs to come to the United States. We don't want people going to China to manufacture their stuff. We want them to manufacture them here and give those jobs to Americans.
All right. Well, Ida says, asked if he works for Joseph Goebbels. No, I know David does not work.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I know he doesn't do that. I'm not going to go there. It has something to do with Nazi Germany, and I'm certainly not going to put you in that category because we might agree with you. I feel a little bit uncomfortable even putting Donald Trump in that category, quite frankly. But some of the language that is used is very disturbing, and perhaps some of the behavior as well. Chippy says David should have his attorney license. No, that's not true. Come on, that's mean. You guys are so mean.
If you ever need an attorney, God forbid someday, and I say God forbid because they're expensive and they're a pain in the butt to work with, you want an attorney that's going to argue regardless. So that is a skill, not a deficiency.
Fair enough. Yeah, some of the comments are really brutal.
I've been reading them. I've been reading them. Trust me. I'm supposed to be deported according to some of these.
Well, you should see some of the comments that people make about me on X. They're probably far worse.
I've seen them.
They're probably far worse, David. But When am I doing your podcast, by the way? That's what
Very soon, actually. We're going to schedule this. The new one. Watch.
I can't wait for the comments.
New one. Do you see? The new one, my new podcast.
I can't wait what people say about me. Okay, so Shelley said David is an attorney. He knows the difference between due process and just throwing people out of the country. Shelley does make a good point there, David. I think you do know the difference.
Well, we're not going to have a due process discussion, but the question at the beginning of a due process discussion is what process is due? And this is probably a question for the Supreme Court at this point, because again, they're not American. So what process is due somebody who's illegally president of the United States that commits crimes when the president is relying, I forget what the act he's relying upon, but he's not using the regular law.
David, so are you going to be, before we go, are you going to be taking a flight to this live tournament in Doral?
No,
to say hello
I'm
to
not a good
leader?
golfer. I'm a good
putter. Guess what? Donald Trump isn't either, but somehow he wins the club championship every year.
Listen, I wouldn't even win anything. I tell you this, though. I'm a good putter. And if Donald Trump was hosting a putt event, I would be there.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. David, always a pleasure. The David Pollack Show. Look forward to doing your podcast soon, and I do appreciate it.
Real soon. And then you'll bring your friends with you. And I think actually they'll have fun because our new podcast is not like this. We just have a lot of fun. And yeah, we talk politics, but
what are you saying? We didn't have fun? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I have fun, but it's definitely not hardcore politics like this.
We got to get David on the Pierce Morgan Show, and I got to go at it with David on the Pierce Morgan Show.
We should do that.
That would be fun. David, it's good to see you, my friend. I hope you have a good weekend.
All right, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for coming on. There you go. David Pollack, everybody. Boy, some of these messages are brutal. Holy smokes. You guys are brutal. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to open up the phone lines next. That's what we're going to do. I was going to play some audio next, but we are going to open up the phone lines next. Kathy says, I wonder what Felon 47 is giving to the dictator of El Salvador in exchange for illegally holding those migrants without due process. Well, Kathy, that's my point, right? Our standard and our government should never be compared to any other government in the world. We're the United States of America. We were founded on immigrants. We have rule of law. We have the Constitution. That was the point I was trying to convey to David. So I agree with you, Kathy. And that's a really good point that you made. I want to open up phone lines when we come back because I know there's a lot of people. Yes, I know there's a lot of people that want to respond to what David said. So the number to call is 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283. Thanks to our sponsors, Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones, home of the $20 ribeye. And comes with a side and vegetables, and they haven't upped the price in 8 years. You won't find a better deal and more quality than you will at Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. They got some great promotions there as well. If you're a slot player, please check them out and tell them that I sent you. Jackson's Bar and Grill. We're also in the YouTube super chat where we're going to read more comments as we go along. Also my website, which is pushingthelimits.live, where we sell merchandise. That's right. Shirts, hats, beanies, you name it. We sell it. And we also take donations there. We have a contest this month where the donation of a minimum of $25, you'll be entered into the running this month for the opportunity. We'll pick one person every month to co-host a segment with me on PTL. We've already have about 10 people or so that signed up in the last few days, or giving them a chance, making the donations to win. So that's what we're doing. Check it out. And we'll be back in 90 seconds with your phone calls, your reaction to that interview. And of course, we're talking about the Dow down like, I don't know, a gazillion points today. U.S. stock markets falling sharply for worst time since COVID. We're taking your thoughts on that as well. 702-221-7283. Be back in 90 seconds. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helps Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part, every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at radioyou101.com.
It's time to wake up and win the weekend. You're listening to the boss of the big ball. JP the Cat, giving you that grease. Join me every Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time for the live action on Vegas Scoreboard Express on KSHP 107.1 FM and AM 1400. Dive into the game day with my in-depth analysis, expert predictions, and winning plays from the sharpest minds in sports betting. It's more than just placing bets. It's about securing wins. Head over to jptheticket.com and be sure to tune in to KSHP this weekend from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time to ride the winning wave with VSX. Tune in and get your money back from the sports book. All money, all sports, no bull. Miss the live show? Subscribe to Vegas Scoreboard Express on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts and radio listening.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. The great Ron Filipkowski from Midas Touch will be joining us on the show tomorrow. The very beautiful and talented Nicole Mitchell will be joining us tomorrow as well. And, of course, the fallout. As I mentioned, U.S. stock markets falling more today than they did to the start of COVID. And many leading economists are saying that this could lead to a global recession. I tend to agree with that. The S&P 500 falling 4% on this Trump tariff plan. And what is Donald Trump doing when the world is on fire, the economic world at a minimum? Well, guess what? Donald Trump going out to Doral, his golf course today, and supporting the Live Golf Tournament, which is, by the way, supported by the Saudi government. And then he's going to a live dinner tonight. So he's very concerned about all of us, I'm sure. All right. What do you guys think out there? 702-221-7283. Let's start off with Curtis, who's calling all the way on the other side of the country from New York City. What's up, Curtis?
Hey, Brian, how are you? Quick statement I want to make here. Being that Trump is doing all these tariffs against other countries, now let's put it like this. Suppose the countries got together and say, listen, screw the U.S. Let's make our own deal together. Where would that leave the U.S.?
Well, I think as a whole, I'll speak in general terms where this leaves the U.S. I think people like you and me are the ones that are going to bear the brunt of this, right, Curtis? We're the ones that are suffering. We're the American consumer. There are people today that are getting their pink slip and they are losing their job. It could be the manufacturing. Listen, all over the country, people are losing their jobs today. There are people that are concerned about their 401ks, rightfully so. There are a lot of people in this country that are worried, but I want to be very clear on this. This is not just about the United States of America. There are people all over the world that Donald Trump is causing unwarranted and unwanted stress. And, you know, if you really want to listen to somebody intelligent, listen to Mr. Carney out there in Canada, okay? People can say what they want about Trudeau, but Carney is a guy that knows what he's talking about when it comes to this sort of things. And I get people that like to dunk on Trudeau, but this guy Carney is an economist and former central bank governor. Okay, he understands the seriousness of this. He held a press conference earlier today. He understands how bad this is, not just for Canada and the United States, but for the world. So that's what I would say to that. I would certainly defer to him. He knows what he's talking about. And this is bad. This is bad for people like you and me. It's bad for people, quite frankly, all over the world. But maybe in Donald Trump's mind, it's good for him. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander in his mind.
Well, what I'm saying is, suppose these foreign countries, everybody he got a tariff against.
Right.
Suppose they all pull together
Yeah.
and say, screw the U.S., we don't need them. We can get rice. We can get rice from this person.
Yeah.
We can get barley from this person. We can get wheat from this country. What will happen to the U.S. then?
Well, it's a good point.
Standing alone.
It's a good question you ask, and I think it's very plausible that can happen, and I can totally understand. That's the danger, my friend. Everything is on the table now. What you're saying could very well happen, and it may already have started to happen. There are a lot of world leaders that are very upset with Donald Trump. There are a lot of Americans that are suffering today that maybe at one point were Trump supporters. And if you're still a Trump supporter after losing your job, then you're an idiot. Thank you for the call, my friend. I think you ask a very plausible, question, something that could happen. 702-221-7283. I think we have Steve who's calling out of West Virginia. Hey, Steve, what's going on?
Hi, Brian. Hey, that guest that you had on today, it kind of reminded me of the three monkeys where you don't see, you don't hear, and all that good stuff. He didn't know very much for being a radio host.
Well, listen, I try to do everything I can to combat a lot of the things that he was saying.
And another thing is, years ago, when people were coming in and they were asking for asylum, they were treated like dirt. And now there's no new.
Yeah.
How do they know all these Venezuelans are bad if they haven't had due process?
I agree. So Steve is your name, correct, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I've
Steve,
called you before.
yeah. So Steve, this is the point that I was trying to make. And you tell me, the point I was trying to make was I wasn't trying to conflate if you're in this country illegally. The point I was trying to make was some of these people, while illegal, do not deserve to be in the highest maximum security prison in the world, arguably, without due process. Okay. It's one thing to be deported, but when you're going to claim, in this case, the White House claiming that all these people, 267 of them, are all gang members and they're all rapists. That's not true. We know that's not true. And the reason why they're not providing the evidence, they say, well, it's a national security issue. No, it's because they're lying. They don't have now, some of these people probably have done that. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that are in this jail right now that just because they're undocumented, they deserve to be treated like animals without due process. I have a serious problem with that. This country was founded on immigrants. It takes 10 to 15 years at some point to be a legal citizen here. And just because somebody's illegal doesn't mean they should be put in a high maximum security prison. You know who I'd like to see put in there? Donald Trump. You know who I'd like to see be put in there? Elon Musk. You know who I'd like to see put in there? All these cronies that work around Donald Trump, the Rudy Giulianis of the world. And then we'll say, well, we're putting them in there because of their tattoo. It's ridiculous.
I just have one more thing.
Yes.
They're pulling all these immigrants away from the farm fields and whatever other jobs they have. And I've heard that Trump is able to keep immigrants that are illegal in his properties.
Yeah.
How can?
Go ahead.
Now these people pay billions of dollars in taxes.
Yep.
Toward our Social Security and our economy, and we're pulling them away from.
You're right.
All this.
You're right. I mean, listen, sir, everything is ass backwards right now. Okay. And the orange orangutan ass himself is mingling with the Saudis right now, the Saudi government and the Live Golf Tournament. Why? Because they're paying him boatloads of money to play a golf tournament at Doral. And Donald Trump is going to a dinner with the Saudis tonight. Maybe Jared Kushner will be there and ask for another $2.1 billion. But let's talk about Hunter Biden's laptop and let's talk about some paintings that he sells. These MAGA Republicans are some of the biggest hypocrites and biggest a-holes that you can find in American politics in the history of this country. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Paul. Paul calling out of California. What's going on, Paul?
I don't think people truly understand what's going to happen to this economy. They think that it's funny and it's cute. Two things. If you buy a $50,000 car and you pay an extra 25%, you're paying $62,500. You're going to pay more in taxes on it. And then you're going to have to finance an extra $12,500, which means you're going to pay a couple extra $1,000 in finances. Further, you don't understand, when we alienate these people, Canada, Europe, South America, Mexico, they're not just going to come back to us after 4 years once we get a new president in there. They're going to open up these new supply chains, and they're going to cut the United States out and say, you're not the big dog anymore that you thought you were. We don't need you as much as we thought. And then what that's going to do, it's going to devalue the U.S. dollar. And what happens when we devalue the U.S. dollar, Brian? What happens to our national debt when we devalue the U.S. dollar? It absolutely is going to crush us. That's the reason that we don't worry about that $32 or $36 trillion in debt, because of the value of the U.S. dollar. We are destroying the value of the US dollar. And these people don't understand basic economics.
They do not. And unfortunately, those people that you're talking about starts with the president of the United States. Now, I'm going to say this, Paul, and you can tell me whether you agree or not. This isn't just on Donald Trump. A big portion of it is on Donald Trump, but the other portion of it I put on these MAGA Republican morons who know that this is bad, and yet they say, yes, master, and they're okay with this, right? There are some Republicans that have come forward that have said they disagree with what Donald Trump is doing, but the large portion of them have voted to give Donald Trump the power to do this. It is on those Republicans, and now they own it while the Americans will suffer for it.
It's because of your guest. Listen, he's a white nationalist. Let's just be real, Brian. You don't have to say it. He is not a stupid guy. You and I both know him. I don't know him. He's not dumb. He knows exactly what he's doing. I didn't see that. I didn't know about this. That didn't happen. If it's a white guy that storms the Capitol and beats police officers, well, we don't know all the details. He pled guilty, but did he really? Did he know what he was doing? But if a Mexican's been here for 30 years and pays their taxes and couldn't get the documentation, yeah, throw him in El Salvador. That's exactly what this is. And they fear that you do that. You do transgenders, and you just basically scare the hell out of these people that think that their version of America is going away while the economy collapses. That's exactly what happened to Benito Mussolini.
Yeah,
he's going to destroy the country, and the economy is going to tank. And at some point, his cult will turn against him. At some point.
Let me tell you something, and I will say this, bluntly, and I will say it as clear as possible, Paul. When the economy continues to go in the wrong direction, they won't be able to blame Barack Obama. They won't be able to blame Joe Biden. They won't be able to blame George Soros. They won't be able to blame it on DEI hires. The only person that they're going to blame it on, and they're going to be forced to do so, is Donald J. Trump. And I feel like eventually that is going to happen. I do feel like eventually that is going to take place. And when it does take place, maybe, just maybe, this is delusions of grandeur, but maybe it's the end of MAGA. But because of this, we are all going to suffer for it, my friend. I appreciate your call. 702-221-7283. I believe Ethan is calling out of Ohio. Hi, Ethan. What's going on?
Hey, Brian. How's it going?
Good.
So it's now official. Today was the worst day for the stock market since the peak in during COVID in 2020. So knowing that much, my first question out of two is, how are we going to blame this on Joe Biden? Because I'm sure that they're going to figure some way to blame it on Sleepy Joe. And my second question kind of just has to do with, what is it going to take for MAGA to jump off of, the Donald Trump train and kind of just going back with regular society, if that's even possible?
Yeah.
I wanted to hear your thoughts.
Well, Ethan, those are two really good questions. I believe, let's go to your first question right off the get-go here. They're not going to be able to blame Joe Biden. They're going to run. They can try to do it now, and their excuses, well, he's only been in there for 2 months. But you're right when you said, listen, where the stock market, where the Dow's at right now, worst it's been in a long time. And I think when we're sitting here a year from now, it's going to be, now Trump will try to make excuses, but many of the MAGA Republicans out there, they've been curling in a pretzel for Donald Trump for years. They're not going to be able to do it. So I think the answer is they're not going to be able to. Trump will lie and continue, but we will be laughing at him. And I think the MAGA Republicans, knowing that he can't run for office again, are going to stop making excuses for him. What was your second question, Ethan? Forgive me if you could ask that again.
So my second question was more relating to, what is it going to take for those
okay, gotcha.
vote for MAGA
Gotcha.
to,
Yeah. When Donald Trump doesn't have a stronghold and a hijacking of the Republican Party, right now he still does. So until he either is about to lose power or loses power, will be the only time where some of these people will finally say, okay, enough is enough. But you know what? We will always hold them responsible. I don't care in 3 or 4 years if they say, geez, I shouldn't have voted for Donald Trump. No, screw you. Screw you. Okay. You should be saying it now. And even then I withhold a lot of, maybe I'll withhold a lot of judgment on you, but even now I say you're complicit. So I think, unless something happens to Donald Trump, maybe a health issue, something along of that nature, until he's out of power, my friend. That's the best way I can answer that. They're in a cult.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ethan, for the call. I appreciate you. Those are good questions. Juan just made a donation in the YouTube super chat. Thank you, Juan. He says, when the stock market was going up during the election, it was because Trump was going to win the office. Now the market is taking because something Joe Biden, right? Juan, you are so right about that. Juan makes such a great point. Do you remember when the stock market was soaring And all these MAGA morons out there were saying, well, it's because they all know that Donald Trump is about to be the president. Now, all of a sudden, when the stock market crashes, it's Joe Biden's fault. It's George Soros. Give me a break. Give me a break. It is absolutely and positively ridiculous. Trump's one move wiped $2 trillion from the stock market in 25 seconds. That is actually not a joke, ladies and gentlemen. That's actually true. And there are a lot of people that are suffering today. And this unwanted stress that's being put on all these people, it's sickening, man. It's sickening. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. All right, why don't we go now? Let's see, who are we going to next here? Let's go to John. I believe John is calling from Mississippi. Is that correct? Missouri. Okay, I read that wrong, I guess. John is calling from Missouri. Hi, John.
Oh, okay. I'm already on. I'm calling from Missouri. Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting to get on this quickly. Yeah. So I was wondering, I was saying, I think it's been, sorry. It's basically been your main thing, I would say, that most of MAGA doesn't have like policies or anything serious that they've been voting on, that they've been voting on silly stuff, right? Well, I would say maybe one of Trump's best things was that back in 2016 when he won, was that he kept Trump out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership when he won, right? Now, back in 2016, it was the plan of Barack Obama that if the Democrats got control of the White House again, that they were going to get the U.S. in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So I don't know, maybe you could speak to that.
So let's go back. Sure. So John, I'm happy to go back to 2016. If you don't mind me asking, are you a Trump? And I'm not holding it against you. I want to have a conversation with you. Did you vote for Donald Trump?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate you calling in. So let's go back to 2016 because you had said, well, I believe that most Trump supporters, they really can't name policies. I tend to agree with you, but let's talk about that. In 2015 and 2016, since we want to go back there, Donald Trump ran on two main things. There were other things he talked about, right? And he blamed Democrats for all of our problems. But he ran on two things. How do we know this? Because the two things he brought up in every campaign stop were, we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it, and I'm going to hire a special prosecutor to go after Hillary Clinton. Well, as you know, John, I think you do, he did not build a wall that Mexico paid for. They didn't pay $1 for it. He got 6% of the wall built. That's number one. And number two, he never hired a special prosecutor to go after Hillary Clinton. By the way, Hillary was investigated 8 times when it came to Benghazi by Republicans. They found nothing. Okay, nothing, zero. And then this time around, since we're talking about policy, in almost every campaign stop, he said he would end the war in 24 hours. Now, I'm just going by the first couple months. You know the war is not over, and it's far from over in Ukraine. And he said he would lower the price of prescription drugs, which he hasn't done. By the way, one could argue he's done the opposite with some of the executive orders that he signed, which I can get into with you. And he said no tax on tips. That hasn't been implemented. It wasn't even in his tax policy a few months ago. And I would also add, on top of that, he's the guy that said he would lower the price of eggs. And even though eggs have dropped in the last couple weeks, they're still way up since day one. So when I say he lies and he makes false promises and people believe it, make America great again is not a policy. It's a slogan. So with respect, sir, I would say that those are my examples that I would bring up of why I say that, sir. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go back and talk to one of those things you said.
Sure.
Okay. If I go back to that one election back in 2016, and my two options were voting for Trump or voting for Hillary, and I thought that Hillary should be in prison, or Trump was saying he was going to put a special project or a special prosecutor. Then, like, why would I vote for Hillary?
Why should Hillary be in prison?
Yeah.
What was the crime?
If I thought that she should be in prison, no, she should definitely be in prison.
Okay, well, what's the crime? Tell me what the crime is. What did she do?
Absolutely, she should be in prison. Selling out uranium, everything, sir.
Whoa, what's the crime?
Everything.
When you say somebody's, like, for example, when I say,
she should definitely be in prison.
Okay, you've said that 5 times. What's the crime, sir?
I didn't say it 5 times, sir.
What's the crime?
5 times.
What's the crime?
She should definitely be in prison. No, you should look into
Pot him down.
Uranium.
Hey, now I'm going to get frustrated with you. You've said 6 times she should be in prison. I've asked you 6 times, what is the crime? Don't answer it with she should be in prison. By the way, The guy that you support is a 34 count felon that should be in prison. Why should he be in prison? Because he's a 34 count felon. Name me the crime that Hillary Clinton committed, sir, please.
There was with Morocco when her husband Bill went to speak in Morocco, and then it was about 3 weeks later after her husband Bill got paid so many hundreds of millions of dollars. She signed something favorable in the treaty forum. It was back in like 2014.
John.
I would have a hard time finding the source because I'm only on the phone.
John. So
right.
You're entitled to your opinion. I don't need the source, and I don't need you to go
It's
into
not
details.
an opinion, it's facts.
John. Then name me the crime. What is the crime? Tell me what the crime is.
Crime, sir.
A crime
She's
isn't.
been heavily
I've never heard of the.
protected in the system,
That's
sir.
not a crime.
She's
You
been
have to
heavily protected.
Sir. There's fraud. Sir, let me explain to you what a crime is. Hold on.
I know what a crime is.
Okay, then
I
name
know
the
what a
crime.
crime is.
Then name the crime.
She's been heavily protected in the system for 40 years, sir.
Being heavily protected in the system isn't a crime. I'm asking you now for the
It is
10th
a
time.
crime.
Name the crime. No, name me the statute that says heavily protected by the system is a crime. Sir, that's not a crime. I'm asking you now for the 11th time. When you say somebody belongs in jail, you need to name what the crime is. Okay? What is the crime?
A huge career criminal in the
Well,
entire
you caught him
system.
down again. A huge career criminal is not naming a crime. I've now asked you 13 times. And if you're going to say somebody belongs in jail, you need to name the crime. Sir, I will ask you for the 14th time. I know you believe that Hillary should be in jail. I get it. I'm asking you what crime was committed. Name a crime. Why can't you do that? Go ahead, sir.
Mysterious death of Seth Rich.
I'm sorry. Seth Rich isn't a crime. Name the crime.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
No.
Seth
Naming a person isn't a crime, sir. Seth Rich isn't a crime. Name me the crime. Are you that ignorant, with all due respect, sir, that you can't even name a crime that you think somebody committed? Like when I say O.J. Simpson committed a crime, I think he committed double murder. You see how it works, sir? Right? You see how it works? Donald Trump is a 34 count felon. He committed fraud. I think he belongs in jail because he's a 34 count felon. It was proven in a court of law. I'm asking you what crime Hillary Clinton committed. Why can't you name the crime? You can't even Google it.
I don't know. I'm only on my phone right now.
All right.
really
So
don't.
I appreciate the fact that you finally admitted after I asked you 15 times, quote, you don't know. I think she belongs in jail. What's the crime? I don't know the crime. Seth Rich, she's protected. That's not a crime, sir. Do you know what the crime is? I don't know. Thank you for finally admitting you don't know. All right. So as we continue this conversation, sir, let's move on to Kamala Harris. Since now we've proven that you want somebody to be in jail, but you can't even articulate what the crime was, which is amazing to me, but that's okay. Let's move on. We'll agree to disagree on that one, sir. Kamala Harris, let's focus on, several months ago. What was it about Kamala Harris that you said, I can't vote for that woman? I want to get your thoughts on that, sir, if that's okay.
Pretty much everything.
Okay, so let's not speak in general terms because everything isn't a policy, right? Everything isn't a policy. Let's be specific and let's start with one specific thing that you didn't like about Kamala Harris, okay?
I don't like anything about Kamala Harris.
Okay, saying you don't like, okay, so sir, are you just being a troll? Are you with the Tucker?
No, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you one more time or the conversation is over because you really sound like a dummy, okay? With all due respect,
right.
You really sound like an ignoramus. You claim Hillary Clinton should be in jail. You couldn't articulate one crime that she committed because you're an idiot. I think we've proven that, sir. What, you have a stutter now, sir? Did you develop a stutter? I'm going to ask you one more time because I think you're an imbecile and you're wasting my time. But that's okay. I do that with you MAGA morons every day. You prove how stupid you truly are. But prove me wrong, sir. Name me something about Kamala Harris policy-wise that you didn't like about her. And I'm not stuttering, sir. I'm now asking you for a third time. Name me something you don't like about Kamala. No, I'm not going to calm down because you've wasted 20 minutes of my airtime because you're a fool.
All she had was her $25,000 housing credit, which I
not
think
true.
was a waste of time.
Okay, so all she had was her $25,000 house credit. Okay, that's not all she had. She talked about raising minimum wage. She talked about putting more money into maternity leave, the right to choose, putting back Roe versus Wade in place. She talked about tax breaks, putting it down to 27% or lower for people that make under $400,000 a year. So you are completely wrong when you say, quote, that's all she had. So would you like to try again and try door number 2 where you can win another stupid prize? Say something that is factually accurate or at least an opinion that makes a little bit of sense, sir. You lost on that one. That wasn't, quote, all she had. I think all you have is 2 brain cells. What do you think about that, sir? Name me something else, please, sir. Please,
I'm going to talk now. I think she's a very beautiful lady. I leave her with a face like a painter's radio. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so you're just an idiot. You're just an idiot. So when it comes down to it, you can't name anything you really didn't like about Kamala Harris. Okay, you probably look like Donald Trump. You're probably a middle-aged, obese white dude, and you put on 8 layers of orange makeup. And I'll tell you one thing: you've never had a woman like Kamala Harris before. In fact, I don't even think you've ever had a woman, quite frankly. What did we learn in this conversation? We learned that another idiot MAGA supporter called into this show and claimed Hillary Clinton belongs in jail. I asked him to articulate and name a crime that he believed that she committed. He couldn't do it, and I asked him over 10 times. And then I asked John, the MAGA supporter, name me something about Kamala Harris that you didn't like. And he couldn't do that either, and then he went to an ad hominem attack. So now I'll do the same. John, you're an imbecile, okay? Go see a dentist with your 3 teeth. Go get educated. Go back to high school and get your GED. And hopefully you'll be deported and sent to an El Salvador prison, but with due process. Don't worry. We'll give you due process. I think you might have some tattoos. Deport John to El Salvador, please. Can we please do that? Holy smokes, what a dope. 702-221-7283, the number to call. Who are we going to next here? Let's go to Charles. Charles is next up on PTL. Hey, Charles, what's going on, man?
Wow, what a lesson, man. Generational inbreeding and massive educational failures are very hard to overcome.
That's true. I agree with that, Charles. I
So,
agree.
you know, I think today, especially based on what you see in the market, the hypocrisy and the double standard these people contort themselves into to try to justify is comical. To your other caller's point, I think what you're going to see now, and you're already seeing some cracks in the dam. Ron Johnson made a derogatory comment about the tariffs and the impact there. The farmers got burned last time, right? So all the farmers in the Midwest that voted for Trump, they voted against their best interests. And eventually the midterms are going to come, and the Democrats, unless they're completely stupid and incapable, will sweep, and the Republicans will lose their majority. So we can all keep our fingers crossed for that, because I believe that's going to be in the cards.
Yep.
And I don't think the market's going to snap back anytime soon.
I don't either. So what do you think happens here in 6 months?
Well, I think a lot of the anticipation that this was bluster now was false. And actually, and you've seen it already, that the information that was assimilated on that poster was incorrect, because they weren't looking at tariffs levied against us. They were using a formula that was including trade deficits.
Right.
So that whole document is worthless, because those were not empirical, factual numbers that were stated out there.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I want to ask you something else, and it's more of behavior. What do you make of the fact that so many, and I'm laughing because it's so ridiculous, and I feel so horrible for so many people in this country, whether they voted for Trump or not. I don't wish them to lose their jobs, right? What do you make of the fact that on a day where so many people are losing their jobs, where the market has tanked and people are suffering, and Donald Trump gets on Air Force One and flies out to his golf course Doral in Miami to entertain a bunch of Saudi nationals and members of the Saudi government who are paying for the Live Golf Tour on his golf course? What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's very similar to the fact that no one wants to talk about Jared Kushner and Steve Mnuchin's mega deposits from the Saudis.
Yep.
Certainly in Jared Kushner's case, because he was not qualified as a financial whiz, or known as such anyway. But as your previous caller called out, they want to call out small infractions by the opposing party, which certainly don't even measure up in terms of dollars, anywhere close to the monies that Trump made while in office.
Yep.
The money they took after office, the money Mnuchin got after office. We're talking about billions with a B dollars.
Yep.
Of kickbacks, literally, from the Saudis.
Yep.
And remember, some of that was to whitewash the murder of Jamal Khashoggi.
Amen, brother. Amen, brother. Great phone call. And you coming at me with facts. I love most of my listeners, not all of them, but most of them, that are very informed and very educated. And that is a perfect example. That was a wonderful phone call and very factually accurate. And I wish maybe you could knock some sense into some of these MAGA morons, but sometimes they're so gone and they're so lost. Listen, if they want to deport people to El Salvador because of bad tattoos, then maybe we should deport people that have, orange fake tans. I don't know. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Mike, who's calling out of Maryland. What's up, Mike? Mike, I've been talking to a very special someone who lives in Maryland. What's it like living out there, Mike?
Well, it gets cold in the winter and hot in the summer.
Fair enough.
Thanks,
That's
Brian.
most of the country. What's
I'll
on your
try to
mind?
be quick. A quick point about constitutional law. And
Yep.
the Constitution, as I understand it, and I'm not a lawyer, but it uses words, particular words, for particular purposes. And one of those words is citizen, and that has a specific meaning. And another word that's sometimes used is persons. And it is very, very deliberate when it uses the word person versus citizen. And things like due process and freedom of speech, the word that is there in our Constitution is persons, not citizens. That means that a French tourist standing on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., has freedom of speech and a right, constitutional, U.S. constitutional right to due process. Now, with regard, for example, to Guantanamo Bay, the Bush administration moved people from the field of conflict to Guantanamo Bay, and they intentionally never let them set foot in the United States, because if they did, they would have the right of due process. And so one case in particular here is a case of Andre Jose Rodriguez Romero. And he was outside of the United States. He applied to the United States, which for asylum, which I believe is a matter of international law. They reviewed his case. He was granted an asylum hearing, and he was trying to enter the country. Basically, as I read it, he was invited here to attend his own asylum hearing.
Yeah.
He was detained at the border, never received due process, and was on one of those flights. Over tattoos that apparently half of the men in his town is a tradition.
Right, correct.
And so that would be my question for another guest like you had today, who is an attorney. Isn't there this distinction? And don't persons, even if they are here illegally, if the Constitution says persons have a right to due process and free speech,
it includes illegal immigrants.
Their legal status does not matter.
Amen. So you just made that point very clear, and you're 100% correct. Even if you are illegal, every human being deserves due process. It states that. And the fact that some people, obviously not you, are okay with not only people being deported, but put into one of the most highest maximum security prisons in the world, just because we know they're illegal, but assume or make assumptions based on some tattoos, according to the White House, that they're in these gangs is absurd.
I'm not passing judgment on any individual whether or not they belong there, and there probably are some that deserve to be deported or incarcerated, and that's all fine. But if they're here standing on our soil, our Constitution gives them a right to due process.
Correct. And that's the point I was trying to make to David, my friend. And your point is very well taken. It shouldn't matter. Notice how he kept saying, where are they from? Where are they from? I don't care where they're from. They could be from another planet. They can be from Mars for all I'm concerned. If they're a human being in the United States of America, whether they are legal or not, every human being is entitled to some sort of due process. We can't just send people to the highest maximum security jails on a whim because we believe they might have raped somebody because of a tattoo they have. That's not how the United States of America works. But sadly, under Donald Trump and Tom Homan, who is a bigot and a piece of crap, that's what they are. This is their policy. This is the way they do things. And if they break the law, they claim the law is unconstitutional. 702-221-7283. Kowalski is next. Kowalski is calling from California. Hey, Kowalski.
How you doing today, Brian?
Hey, good.
Oh, all right. That's great. Because I am absolutely appalled by David Pollack. Holy God. This guy is sucking down so much poop shake we could smell it through the freaking radio. All right. I'm still having problems understanding how that guy's a lawyer but doesn't understand the Constitution or due process. I mean, you would think due process is one of those an integral parts of what a lawyer might understand.
Yeah.
And yet And yet the man had somehow questions on it. You're supposed to be the professional, but you don't seem to know how it works. I don't
understand why. I don't understand why anybody, especially an attorney, would not understand that we can't just put people into the highest maximum security prisons and make deals with our foreign adversaries just because we're on a whim. Just because
that's mind blowing to me.
It is.
That's like saying that's like finding a cook.
You know what's
like I'm a baker. And he doesn't have an oven.
You know what? I want to give you an analogy, and I'm going to go back to the George W. Bush days for a moment. Do you remember? It was substantiated to be true.
I served in those years. Yeah.
Yeah. So so you probably know this story, my friend Kowalski. So 24 hours after the 9/11 attacks, George W. Bush put a bunch of members of the bin Laden family on a plane and sent them home. Didn't send them to maximum security prisons, didn't question them, put them all on a plane and sent them home. We treated members of bin Laden's family far better than somebody who might be in this country illegally that pays their taxes and has been here for decades and has family here. But we treated, I say we, I mean Republicans, in this case, George W. Bush, treated the bin Laden family first class. But
you remember that.
Yeah, you remember that, right? I mean,
I remember all kinds of dumb things from the Bush administration. We could be here all day talking about dumb things that happened with the Bush administration.
So why is that? Let me ask you a question. Why is it that hours after 9/11, when you had thousands of innocent people die, one of the worst days in our country in American history, and George W. Bush put a bunch of members of the bin Laden family on a plane and gave them now, I think it has something to do with money. I think that if
you would actually be correct on one part and parcel, but it's not the entire formula. You have to also remember that bin Laden, okay, the guy we know as bin Laden, was an asset of the United States for quite some time.
Yes.
Okay. And his family was here because why?
Well, listen.
Because he was an asset of the United States
of
America.
It had to do with money.
Right?
It was financial.
So they had to treat him decently. That was part of his deal, to bring his family to places where they could be prosperous, where they could get educated, right? And then when we found out kind of that he was part of this, they were like, get out.
Yep. That's my point, though.
Happened.
But you're right, Kowalski. But my point still stands, and I think we agree, is that if you're a member of a family of the leader of Al-Qaeda with the worst terrorist attack in American history on our soil, not only are you not questioned, but we put you on a first-class flight back home. But yet, if you're illegal in this country and you have tattoos, allegedly, and some of these people have no criminal records, Donald Trump and Tom Homan have no problem deporting you, but putting you to the highest maximum security prisons on the planet. Welcome to the Republican Party, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the UK and let's go to Paul. Let's see what Paul thinks about this. What's going on, Paul?
Yeah, hi there, Brian. Firstly, congratulations for your what did you call it? Something's Freedom Day, Independence Day.
Yeah.
I hope you're all enjoying it. Just on the point you made there, Brian, you were talking about him playing live golf. I'm sure you remember this when COVID first really hit America. And Anthony Fauci was not quite rightly taking center stage, and Trump got jealous. And not only did he pushed sort of Fauci out the way to make his point, but he boasted that he was number one on Facebook. I think you might remember that.
Yep, I do.
On a COVID.
Yep.
When the whole of America was terrified, he was boasting because he was number one on Facebook.
Yep.
This guy is a rabid dog. You can't cure rabid dogs. You can't pat them and make them your friend, or feed them and make them your friend. He's got something so fundamentally wrong in his wiring, in his brain. You can't even put normal parameters on it. It's like trying to think how an octopus thinks. He doesn't even think like you and me. He's such a bad guy.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, he's just a despicable human being who only cares about himself. And today he showed his true colors once again. I mean, you look at this country right now and how many people that have lost their jobs just because of these tariffs alone, and the Dow record numbers that have dropped. And instead of Donald Trump trying to ease the American people in some way, shape, or form, instead of him holding press conferences, speaking to reporters and traveling in this country, talking to people, he decides to go to Doral, his golf course in Doral, and hang out with a bunch of Saudi government officials in a live golf tournament and profiting off of it. And he's going to a dinner tonight. It's despicable. That's what it is.
I know you don't listen to Rachel Maddow, but I do it for you. She did a podcast today, where she was talking about all the sackings, all the experts who are being sacked and laid off. And one of them was the person who saved Trump's life when he had COVID really badly. He got sacked. How ironic.
Very ironic. You know, all I can say is this. I don't root for America to fail. I know you don't. I think it is inevitable that the economy is going to go in the toilet, and it's going to be very difficult to recover from this. And looking back in history, people like us will say, I told you so. I told you so. And that's really all we will be able to do. And we'll see who runs in a couple of years. We'll see in 2028 who's running on the right. But I got to tell you, they're not going to be able to use Joe Biden as an excuse. They're not going to be able to use Barack Obama or George Soros as an excuse, my friend. And it is good to hear from you calling from the UK. I appreciate you so much. Kathy just made a donation in the super chat. I want to read that. Kathy, thank you for your donation. Kathy says Dow has closed down approximately 1,680 points. Felon 47 fired 3 senior national security officials under Laura Loomer, who suggested that Pete Hegseth is under investigation by the Pentagon's acting inspector general. What a day. Yeah, Kathy, it is what a day. That's who Donald Trump listens to, idiots like Laura Loomer. Let's go to Dennis. Dennis is calling in next from North Carolina. What's going on, Dennis?
Not much. I just wanted to ask you and see if this made any sense to you. You know, with Trump having all these tariffs out and the tariff war going on, and he made it to happen, of course. And he said he's wanting the United States to be by itself. You know what I'm saying? Make its own economy.
Yeah.
So now he's saying he's going to get over here and he's going to have all these plants building everything, you know, tables, chairs, cars, anything and everything. You know, I used to work in a cotton mill. Well, there are a lot of people working in that cotton mill. But you start thinking about it. Is all these plants going to be made like they were back then? No. All of them's going to have so many robotics and chips and computers and everything in it. You don't have many people in these buildings working. No, it might take a few to build them, of course. But as far as running the place, it's going to be all automated. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I agree with you, and I appreciate your call, sir. And, and thank you, Alfonso, by the way, for your donation. We appreciate your support of the show. You know, whether it be a cotton mill or an auto dealership, there are companies across the country today that are really struggling mightily, and they're laying people off left and right because they have to because of these tariffs. And if Donald Trump cared about the American people, he would have never implemented these tariffs to begin with. If he cared about others throughout the country, he would have never implemented these tariffs. We're going to hear the excuses. We're going to hear from the talking heads on Fox News and the talking heads on Newsmax and AON. We're going to hear the excuses. They're going to put on right-wing pundits and people that have no idea what they're talking about, saying this is great for the American people, when we know it's not. It's horrible for the American consumer. It's horrible for those that have businesses here that are struggling. It's horrible for those outside of this country. Our friends in Canada, for example, is a perfect example of that. And Donald Trump has literally lit the world on economic fire. And while I don't condone violence, and if they want to call you a domestic terrorist for lighting a Tesla car on fire, which obviously I don't support, the real terrorist is Donald Trump, because our economy is on fire right now. Not just a bunch of Tesla cars, but the entire country economically is on fire right now as we speak. And I mean that in a bad way, not a good way. We know who the real terrorists are. And it's the guy in the White House who puts on his 8 layers of orange makeup every day, who's a 34-count felon and a liable sexual abuser. That is the real terrorist. He is the real threat to this country and to the world. And we are learning it today across the world. Once again. All right, let's see. Who are we going to? Let's go to Isaiah. Isaiah is calling out of New York. Hi, Isaiah.
Hey, what's up, Ryan? Big fan of your stuff, man. I found your channel recently on YouTube, so
thank you.
I've been watching it. I like how you take down a lot of these MAGA people.
Thank you.
I was just curious. What is your overall kind of take on what's going on with Israel and Palestine? If I can get just your opinion on that, I'm just curious.
Yeah, and I appreciate the call, and thank you for finding my YouTube page. Ever growing. We're pushing 90,000 subscribers now, very close to it. We might get there this weekend. So my opinion, I'm not a Benjamin Netanyahu fan. I believe he has committed war crimes. I will also say that this retaliation is Israel defending themselves. You might disagree how they're doing it, but it wouldn't have happened if the October attacks by Hamas. There are unfortunately too many people in Palestine that defend Hamas. I haven't spoken to one person in Palestine, one Palestinian, I should say, that believes Israel should exist. Now, I believe an innocent child dying in Gaza, a Palestinian, is just as bad as an innocent Israeli dying. Israel does. I agree with Kamala Harris for as a whole when she said Israel has the right to defend themselves, but they also have a responsibility. We should help them defend themselves, but at the same time, owning Gaza and the nonsense that Donald Trump says on a daily basis about that situation is beyond idiotic, almost as idiotic maybe as these tariffs. Thank you for the call, sir. Sandy's calling out of Wyoming. Hey, Sandy, what's going on?
Hey, Brian, just want to say a huge thank you. You don't know it, but you changed my life. I started listening to you just before the election. And you're the one person in this world, there are very few, that I totally agree with. I want to thank you for being brave, for speaking out. And I became an election official because of the things you said.
Wow, that's really cool. I'm very humbled by that. Thank you.
I just want to ask you how you feel about the new legislation that is supposed to safeguard, finger quotes, the country from illegal immigrants voting, and it affects women, so that I'm going to have to bring proof of my name change. Have you heard about this, and how do you feel about it?
I have. So in general, here's what I will say, because we're running out of time here, but in general, here's what I will say to that, Sandy. Republicans are willing to do anything and everything to make it more difficult for people in general to vote, especially brown people. This is another example of that. Democrats want to make it easier for people to vote. And listen, the argument is always up for grabs when it comes to having identification with you, so on and so forth. Now, I don't believe that if you're a convicted felon, you should be allowed to vote. I've always felt that way. If you're in a jail, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. However, we should be making it easier for people in this country to vote. And in general, I repeat, Republicans are making it more difficult because the more people that get involved in vote, in my opinion, the lesser the chance that a Republican can win. And I think we saw that in 2020, where we had a huge voter turnout. This time around, less people voted. When less people vote, Republicans have a better chance to win. The more people vote in this country, the better chance Democrats have to win, because more people in this country are leaning to the left. That's just a matter of fact. It's not a split 50-50 thing. Just like most people in this country believe in a woman's right to choose. I think it's about 60%. Yet most MAGA Republicans, I'd say 99% of them, are want to tell women what to do with their body. So it goes the same thing with voting, right? As I said before, Republicans are willing to do anything and everything to make it more difficult for people to get to the voter booth.
Yeah, and I'm just bound and determined to tell everybody that's female, do what you need to do. If that means you get a passport, if that means you get documentation up to your eyeballs, then take it with you so you can vote.
Yep. But at the same time, if they lose an election, they'll say it was rigged. If they lose an election, they'll say somebody cheated. But yet it seems like, last I checked, the people across the country that were cheating back in 2020, something with a fake electorate scheme. That's what I heard. And last I checked, those weren't liberals that were doing that. They were MAGA moron imbeciles across the country that were screaming, hang Mike Pence. MAGA imbeciles that tried to overthrow a free and fair election. I am humbled, Sandy, that you are doing that, and I really appreciate you. And please give us an update on how that goes, okay?
I will do that. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you, Sandy. Without people like you, I wouldn't be doing this for a living. So I appreciate you as well. And that's very humbling. Thank you. Boy, we're running out of time here. Let's quickly go to Shelley in West Virginia. Hey, Shelley, what's going on?
Brian, right after Trump got elected, I ran into a man that owns a car dealership here. And he ran for the state office.
Yep.
So I knew he was a Donald Trump supporter. And I asked him, I said, what are you going to do when he puts tariffs out there? He said, oh, they're just a bargaining tactic. And I would hope I run into him again, because they'll say, what do you think now? Is it a bargaining tactic now?
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's funny, right? They say the art of the deal. It's what these MAGA morons say, the art of the deal, the art of the felon, right? It's the art of the scumbag. That's really what is going on here. I think today is a microcosm of Donald Trump as a whole, as who he is, right? Donald Trump, while the country is on fire economically, he decides to go to play golf and support the Saudi government because he's enriching himself. I got about 30 seconds for Julie. Hi, Julie. Go right ahead from Tennessee. Hi, Julie.
Okay, 30 seconds. I don't know if you know this, but Donald Trump put a tariff on all African countries, including Morocco, which he supports Morocco.
I wonder why.
So it surprised me.
Did he put any tariffs on Switzerland or Sweden or Germany? I don't know. Yeah, it is interesting, though, that usually, and maybe not all the time, my dear, but usually it does appear that Donald Trump usually likes to attack what he considers the S-hole countries. I do find that very, very interesting. Don't you? So I got about 30 seconds for Keith calling out of Florida, and then we're up against the clock here. What's up, Keith? Go ahead.
Hey, I'll make it real quick. Trump is tariffing penguins. He is tariffing the Icelandic islands, which are populated by penguins.
Yeah. 185 countries, right, sir? 185 countries, by the way. You're right. You're absolutely right, my friend Keith. I'm up against the clock, man. I do appreciate you calling in, and thank you all for all the calls, and thank you for the YouTube super chats we got today and the donations on pushingthelimits.live. I will read out those donations and those names and those comments tomorrow because we just didn't have time to do it today. My apologies for that. Tomorrow on the show, Midas Touch. They have the #1 podcast in America. They just beat Joe Rogan, and we love having Ron Filipkowski on the show. He's going to be joining us tomorrow. Ron is just so smart. He's so great. Nicole Mitchell will be joining us, and we have some special announcements for some big guests that are going to be joining us on the show next week. We always get big guests on the show. Come on. In the last week, we've had Roland Martin. In the last week, we've had David Pakman on the show, just to name a few. Joe Walsh, former presidential candidate, did the show, and Ron Filipkowski will be joining us on the show tomorrow along with Nicole Mitchell. So we're going to have some fun. Love all you guys out there. Hey, the best thing you can do is be active on my YouTube page, right? We're pushing 100,000 subscribers. Right? I think we're just short of 88K right now. We want to get to 100,000 here, at least by the end of the month, which I do believe we definitely will be able to do. So keep the thumbs up, keep sharing. The best thing you do is share this show with other people. Go to my website, pushingthelimits.live, where you can buy merchandise on there and support what I do. My favorite shirt is Don't Be a Right-Wing Buffoon shirt. You can go to pushingthelimits.live and you can do that. And of course, make donations, monthly donations, whatever you can afford. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you to everybody in the YouTube super chat as well. We love you guys. We have created, boy, some of you guys can be ruthless at times, but I got to be honest with you, there's a part of me that kind of likes it. You guys were ruthless with David, but he did say some things that I vehemently disagree with. So I can understand why you guys got a little emotional there. But we have developed quite a PTL community here, and I'm so proud of it. We're going to keep it going, ladies and gentlemen. As long as you guys continue to support what I do, I'm going to continue to do this every day, and I love doing it, and I appreciate you guys, and I love all you guys very much. We will see you tomorrow, everybody. Have a great day.
Hey, everybody. Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the